Hi, this is Stephanie Miller from The Stephanie Miller Show. Please enjoy this exclusive clip from my show on Political Voices Network. Turned up to 11. That story's turned up to 11. Not just one person. Everybody's crying. Everybody's sobbing. It's hard to even walk in there. It was just overflowing with tears.
Same story.
And people saying they're sorry.
Every single time. Yeah, and you're exactly right, though. It's getting bigger. It's like, you know what? It's like the lightsaber battles in the Star Wars movies. First it starts with one, and then there's like three people, and then there's several people, and then there are all the Jedi fighting with lightsabers by like the third movie or fourth movie. So, yeah, there's an exponential growth of people crying in front of Donald Trump. But the truth is that there's an issue with our societal BS detector. I think there's something that our BS detector has blown a gasket. And I'm not talking about us. Yeah. I'm just talking about a frighteningly large percentage of the American population who has no idea or just doesn't care that this is just the biggest pile of excrement that someone could ever say. Yeah. It's like, Charlie Kirk and those guys were doing this thing for throughout the 2020 election where they were saying, I just was coming out of a coffee shop and there were a group of liberals there, like hardcore Democrats, and they were talking about how they were going to try to vote for Donald Trump that year. It's a myth. It's like a talking point. Yeah. That they just keep repeating and recycling. Yeah. And now Donald Trump is part of that, or maybe he's always been part of that. Yeah. But he loves that story.
We saw the video of people smiling, the courthouse smirking, the guy that shut the door in his face.
Yeah, letting the door slam on Donald Trump. No, they weren't even going to hold the door for that guy. You mean to tell me just like seconds earlier, the guy who let the door close on Donald Trump's face was sobbing over Donald Trump getting, just arraigned?
How could they do this to you? He had just dried his tears, Bob.
Yeah, okay. A guy who probably lived through 9/11 and probably lost some people in 9/11 is like crying because Donald Trump's got to go get arraigned for a day.
We were talking before we came on here just about whether the obvious, I don't know, whatever it is, Adderall, whatever causes the extreme sniffing has gotten worse. And you were saying no, it was there during the debates. I just feel that's part of the national mainstream media fail, the elephant in the room that we just you were talking about the slurring,
God bless the United States.
Nobody
you never got an explanation for that.
Just the slurring and the stumbling and the sniffing and that he obviously has a substance abuse problem is just anyway, just part of the insanity of where we've gotten, right?
Oh, yeah. There will be decades more, long after Donald Trump is gone, in which there are books published about the weird things that we observed and presenting more details about those things. I hope, sometime before I'm 90, we get a book that explains that Jerusalem speech. What happened to him? Because Ronnie Jackson's explanation afterward, Ronnie Jackson hammered in the press room talking about
he's drunk.
I dried up all of his sinuses, right before a major speech, a major policy initiative. Yeah. I completely effed with his nasal passages or something. Yes, of course, we believe that. The guy who just said that Donald Trump was 6'10", whatever it was, 210 pounds. Right. No way.
Right.
So we can't believe anything Ronnie Jackson said about why that happened. You know what? I'm totally the Trump derangement guy. That SNL sketch the other night about CN Zen, where there's an app to enjoy the Trump indictment. Yeah. That's totally me.
Oh, me too.
I was loving every second. We talked about this last week.
Oh yeah, people going, "Oh, we shouldn't have given it coverage. That's how we got here." And I'm like, "Oh God, no! It's like porn to me. I enjoyed. I froze it. I played it again. I enjoyed every second of his humiliation. We are due his humiliation after these 7 years of trauma, Bob."
Oh yeah. I've got an IV drip right over here that I use, just that pumps Donald Trump indictment news right into my veins.
I can't watch that grumpy face enough. I'm just like, oh my God.
Yeah, I mean, look, there's nothing wrong with that. He's an unforgivable bully. He's a menace to society, a dictator in waiting who would destroy democracy if he's elected. Yeah, I'm going to enjoy when he's in trouble.
Yes,
I'm going to savor every second of that.
And by the way, President Biden to NBC News, you retweeted, "I plan on running for re-election," and you said, "So drop the fanfic about alternative tickets and suit up, Democrats. It's time to humiliate the Republicans again." Oh my God, right on cue with Marianne Williamson and Bobby Kennedy. I'm like, oh God, please.
Yeah.
What are we?
Yeah.
We are literally facing fascism on the other side now, right? Whether it's Ron
Right.
DeSantis or Trump. Yeah.
Yeah, don't get me started on this because it's some sort of, you talk about the BS detector blowing a gasket. This is another one of those situations where we are on the precipice. I don't think we can impress enough upon people how close we are to losing democracy should an election, all it takes is one election to swing the wrong way. And they're playing as
Trump
though
judge. Look what one Trump judge just did, Bob.
Oh yeah. Oh my God, it's uncanny. It's very plain to see what's going on, and so these people who want to support either Marianne Williamson or RFK Jr. or any third party, any sort of let's have a primary challenge of Joe Biden, or let's not have Joe Biden run at all. They're just inviting the weakening of an incumbent president who there's no one better suited to win a national election than an incumbent president. To have that bully pulpit, to have that platform going into an election is invaluable.
Yeah.
And what we want to do is undermine this. They're acting as though it's like the middle 90s and the stakes aren't anywhere near where they are right now.
Right. And I speak as someone that I voted for Elizabeth Warren in the primary, but I got on board immediately. I mean, I speak as someone like many of us that maybe Biden wasn't your first choice, but oh my God.
Well, it's one thing if there's an open primary and there's no Democratic incumbent running, then okay, everyone get in and we sort it all out.
Yeah.
Figure out party unity after we get a nominee.
We've been here before. Bernie talked about primarying Obama after his first.
Oh
yeah. I mean,
it's the silly season for this.
Yeah. Somebody tweeted at you, weird to refer to democracy as fanfic, but here we are, I guess. And you said FFS. Let's talk about democracy then. Your idea of democracy is to weaken the normal incumbent in a primary, weakening him for the general, which pushes us that much closer to a Trump/Trump adjacent dictator and the end of democracy. This is an Adult Swim, Kevin, who's the guy who tweeted you. Thank you. It's an Adult Swim. Right. And, it's not a great position to be in where we have to line up behind whoever the Democratic nominee is at every level, whether it's president on down to city council. But that's the way the times have presented themselves. And we have to play within what's real and what's mathematical. And what we don't want to do is empower Republicans because we have some sort of idealistic view, which is anachronistic as well. It doesn't apply. We can't play that game. As I said, we can't do this as though the stakes are just whether the corporate tax rate is 38 or 39%. That's completely irrelevant right now. What we're doing is we're observing a political atmosphere where democracy is at stake, where the because what the Republicans want to do is elect leaders, whether at the presidential level on down, who will then never leave office. Yeah.
We need to take them seriously about what happened in 2020 into 2021. And I don't think enough of us are.
And Bob, I got a couple of for instances for you from out here in California. Julia Claire tweeted, Dianne Feinstein has missed 58 Senate votes in the last month because of illness/being 89 years old. Biden can't confirm any federal judges without all Dems present on the Judiciary Committee. She's given no indication of a return date. Julia goes on to say, now that she's my senator, I finally feel even more emboldened to say resign. Do you know how many lifetime appointed judges Trump was able to push through, like the one who just invalidated the FDA approval of mifepristone? This is an emergency. And I love Dianne Feinstein. I've met her. She's been a great senator from out here in California. But that is a good point about this one Trump judge. And how about the other Trump judge that lifted the mask mandate for the entire country on planes, right? It's stuff like that where we are literally facing fascism. Everybody's got to get on board.
Yeah, and look, it's not as though we're pulling this out of thin air. There is significant historical precedent for what we're talking about that shows how important in times like this party unity happens to be. Whether we're talking about going in the 1980 election where Ted Kennedy primary challenged an incumbent president and Jimmy Carter, weakening him. Maybe, who knows whether he would have won or not in the general without Ted Kennedy, but it weakened him. It made him spend resources defending himself against Ted Kennedy that could have been used to defend himself against Ronald Reagan.
Yeah.
Took his eye off the ball, so to speak.
Yeah.
And we could go down the list.
And
the sort of the third party fetish that went on in 2016 led to Donald Trump being elected, or helped Donald Trump get elected, which then led to 3 Supreme Court justices that have their seats for life.
Yeah, here's another, for instance, is, we admit, right, Travis, we're biased toward Adam Schiff. He's my personal congressman. He's a friend. He's a friend of the show. Yeah. I think he'd make an amazing senator in Feinstein's seat. I love Katie Porter, but Harley Ruda just dropped. I don't know if you saw that, just dropped out. He has a health issue. So Katie Porter's seat just became even harder to keep if she leaves. So it's just, Bob, I just think you're right. The stakes, I mean, you talked just about the gun. Look just what happened in Tennessee. You just said there needs to be a national campaign and intervention to solve our addiction to firearms, the gun culture. Use the anti-smoking campaigns of the past as a template. Don't require new laws. Doesn't run afoul of the courts, the Second Amendment, etc. Right? It's just there's so much that needs to be done that literally is a matter of life or death, right?
Yeah. And we do this thing every time there's another mass shooting where we demand legislation. And unfortunately, Congress right now, completely impotent. There's nothing that's going to happen at the congressional level. You're not going to get anything through the House of Representatives as long as Kevin McCarthy and Jim Jordan are running the show over there. So what do we do in the meantime? As state legislatures, we can get some things passed, like was passed in Washington State this past week. An assault weapons ban is working its way through the state legislature there. But in terms of all these red states, like Kentucky, like Tennessee, we're beating our faces against a brick wall. What happens is, even if we do pass legislation, we end up running into the Second Amendment impediment in the courts. So how do we approach this? We should keep fighting for legislation while at the same time we have to look at the gun culture in this country. What motivates people to want to stockpile firearms?
Yeah.
And I think that's a society that reveres firearms, that has glorified the use of firearms, whether it's our political leaders using firearms to solve problems overseas, our militarized cops, deploying firearms against unarmed American citizens, whether it's our entertainment, on down the line. Firearms have this reverence, this sacrosanct idolatry that surrounds it in this country, and we need to start rolling that back. And so I've been proposing this idea of tackling firearms the way we tackled big tobacco and cigarette smoking.
It's a great idea.
A national campaign, every level that we can of the culture, we focus on diminishing the view, stigmatizing the view of firearms in this country, rolling that back. And if we tackle the demand, then the supply will begin to diminish. And I think that's another route we can take that's free and clear. We don't have to worry about the Second Amendment. We don't have to worry about Jim Jordan or state legislatures.
Yeah.
This is what we can do right now without passing a single law. All we need is money, time, and tenacity, and we can do it.
Yeah, absolutely. I love you, as you know. We have one, on a personal note, we have another thing in common. I'm so sorry your dad had a stroke. My dad also did, and I know you tweeted about it, and I'm so sorry. And just wondering how he's doing.
He's okay. It was a pretty serious stroke, and it's affected his cognition. He can still move around and things like that, but he's a different man today than he was on Thursday, the day before it happened. And so, but fortunately, I've got lots of support. My family, of course, is all, in fact, doing much more than I am at this point to help him out. And obviously, I always want to thank my Patreon subscribers who actually really stepped up and provided lots of support and love and everything like that. So I couldn't be more grateful for all of that. And we've got our fingers crossed for a recovery. He's, slowly regaining his speech and his ability to understand what's going on around him. And so we're encouraged. We're cautiously optimistic. So but it's going to be a long road. It's going to be a hard road.
Yeah, I loved that was very loving to it. You said his progress Friday, Saturday was remarkable, though recovering some words. It'll be a long rehab, but he's a tough, tenacious guy, and I'm optimistic. I bet he's amazing to have raised a son like you. So we send all our love and light, honey.
Thank you so much.
All
yes, right. He's a good man. He's a strong man, and it's one of those things where, and you're experiencing it to a certain degree, where you're grieving for someone who's still there. And so maybe there's a silver lining in that.
Yeah.
We can express ourselves and tell them how we really feel
Yeah.
before they go. And so there's
Bob,
there's an
my
upside.
mom,
There's always an upside.
Yeah, my
Yeah.
mom's 100 and has Alzheimer's, and so it's, she's sometimes there, sort of, and sometimes not, and that's all you can do is, say how much you love them, and I taught you, as you were sweet enough to ask Sean how his mom's doing. Sean loves his mom so much he left me. He left me and took care of her. Now she's doing great.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know about his priorities, but now she's doing great. They're retired, loving life. So yeah.
Yeah, very happy to hear about that too. Yeah. But I mean, it's hard. It's hard when they're in that gray area between being with you and not with you, and so we're all doing the best we can, and
I know.
Hoping for the best.
Call me anytime, especially when if we're not looking for sound bites to share, like fart noises and stuff.
Okay, yeah.
We can talk about life stuff too.
Republicans say they won't cut Social Security, Medicare, or Medicaid. But can honest, hard-working middle-class Americans really believe what these politicians say? Republicans said they wouldn't overturn Roe v. Wade. Here's what Supreme Court Justices Gorsuch, Kavanaugh, and Coney Barrett said during their Senate confirmation hearings.
Roe v. Wade. It is a precedent of the United States Supreme Court. A good judge will consider it as precedent of the United States Supreme Court.
Roe v. Wade. It's settled as a precedent of the Supreme Court.
Roe is not a super precedent, but that doesn't mean that Roe should be overruled.
Well, we saw how that turned out. They played us for fools. Tell your elected officials to keep their hands off of our Social Security and healthcare benefits. Fool me once. Let Majority Rule was responsible for this message. LetMajorityRule.org is a project of the Marvin Lucas Super PAC, which is responsible for and paid for this ad and is not affiliated with or authorized by any political campaign or candidate or candidates committee.